Spider-Man is the single most popular superhero in all of Marvel Comics. Having said that, it's no surprise that I have loved every single Spider-Man video game I've ever played. But amongst the excellent lineup of Spider-Man's video games over the years, the latest one, developed by Insomniac Games and published by Sony Interactive in 2018, reigns supreme over them all by a large margin. I'm Mike, and this is my Retroaction review of Marvel Spider-Man for PS4. The combat in this game is excellent. It centers around Spider-Man's Spidey sense, his mobility, combos, and gadgets. While the game does follow the same formula as others in the Spider-Man gaming franchise, the combat here expands and innovates everything that has existed in the past. The brawler aspect of the game shows Spider-Man in all his glory, with the player using button combos, dodges, and superhuman acrobatics to bring down New York's underbelly. While all of this has been the standard throughout the Spider-Man game series, here it truly comes to life in a way that we have not seen before. A feature brought forward from the older games that I specifically want to talk about is the dodge system. While many people may think about the Arkham games when asked what the first game was that they played which had a perfect dodge system, actually, Spider-Man 2 for PS2 implemented a system like this a whole 5 years before Batman Arkham Asylum, the first in the Arkham series. An indicator appears over Spider-Man's head telling the player to dodge. This even works for dodging bullets. Now today this may not seem like that big of a deal, but before the Spider-Man 2 game, if a dodge system was implemented at all in a game, it would usually be a quote-unquote bullet time system, like that of the Matrix or Max Payne games, in which time would slow down and the player could then walk out of the way of incoming attacks. Stealth combat is implemented in this game quite uniquely and is done surprisingly well. While in most games, using stealth tends to mean slowing down combat, here that isn't necessarily true. While you may need precision, you won't always need patience for stealth. Spider-Man can zip around an area, silently taking down enemies in quick succession. The action and speed maintained in the stealth side of combat is unique, satisfying, and really allows Spider-Man to show what he is capable of. I was very surprised at this aspect of the game, as I never really thought of Spider-Man as being a cloak and dagger type, but this game has really opened me up to the idea of a person with Spider-Man's abilities being so well suited to stealth. There are 8 unlockable gadgets in the game, giving Spider-Man quite an arsenal to prepare himself for any combat situation. Spider-Man starts the game with his standard web shooters that are what allow him to both web up enemies and move around the city in his signature fashion. The impact web is a gadget quite like the web shooter, except that it fires with much greater force, webs normal-sized enemies instantly, and can be used to pin enemies to walls and other objects for an instant knockout. The Spider Drone is my personal favorite. It is a small, autonomous drone that hovers around the battlefield, attacking any enemies in sight with an energy blaster. The Electric Web is a gadget that electrifies Spider-Man's webs before it fires them. When they hit enemies, they stun them. The gadget can also be used to power electrical conduits. The Web Bomb gadget is a proximity-activated explosive. When activated, after being placed of course, it launches into the air and instantly webs all enemies within its blast radius.
I know, I should have called first.
The Trip Mine is a trip laser-activated device that instantly incapacitates smaller enemies. The Concussive Blast gadget allows Spider-Man to send enemies flying by releasing a sonic wave. And lastly, the Suspension Matrix is a gadget that, when deployed, lifts enemies around it into the air and holds them there for a few seconds, leaving them open to attack. I appreciated the gadgets in the game for 2 reasons. They enrich the combat with depth by giving the player a multitude of playstyle options, and they also show us a side of Peter Parker that I have sorely missed in the MCU. You see, in the comics, Peter Parker was a teenager when he gained his powers, but his life experiences had made him an extremely mature and focused young man. This, along with his genius intellect, helped Peter become the superhero that we all know and love. In the comics, he invents and upgrades almost all of his own gear, and his belief that the more powerful you are, the more important it is for you to do what is right is always foremost in his mind. All these aspects make up the pillars of Spider-Man's character, yet sadly have been left out of the MCU movies. But they are very refreshing to see here in this game. For those reasons, I actually think that this game gives us the best depiction of the character since Tobey Maguire in the Sam Raimi films. One of the really great features of this game that has to be mentioned, especially when comparing it to other Spider-Man games, is the graphics. This game is beautiful, and normally that is not something that I care too much about, but the graphics are so good and complement certain features of the game so well that they should definitely be mentioned. The game has a well-made progression system, with the player gaining experience from combat. Every time that Spider-Man levels up, you earn a point that can be spent on a new skill. The player can also upgrade all of Spider-Man's gadgets using tokens that are earned from various different activities around the city. As you explore the open world of New York City, you will find random encounters where you may have to stop a mugging or a car chase, all the way up to intervening in all-out gang warfare. You will also find timed challenges ranging from chasing a drone to stealthily taking down a group of enemies to an old-fashioned brawl with multiple waves of criminals. This brings me to what is probably the best feature in the entire game: the web swinging. This is a great example of multiple features in a game coming together to bring a character to life. Spider-Man's mobility, his web shooting, the open world, and especially the graphics make just moving around in this world fun. And again, I cannot overstate to you how important the graphics in this game are to making this experience as amazing as it is. The last thing that there is to say about the features in this game is that while in-depth customization of Spider-Man's appearance isn't available, and probably wouldn't make much sense considering the fact that a superhero's appearance is a big part of who they are, there are many different Spider-Man suits that you can unlock throughout the game. This also ties into the progression system because each suit offers a special ability as well as changing the character's appearance. Any good Spider-Man story needs to show Peter Parker as being a normal person who has been given an enormous amount of power, and because of this is stuck in a juggling act, trying to make his life work while also being a superhero and also trying to not sacrifice too much normalcy. This game's story is written superbly. It is broken into 3 major plot strands, each of which shows a different aspect of Peter Parker's life. The first plot strand involves the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, and his power struggle with a new super-powered criminal organization, the Demons. This shows the superhero side of Peter's life as he fights crime as Spider-Man and tries to protect New York City. The second plot strand is the rivalry between his boss and fellow scientist, Dr. Otto Octavius, and Norman Osborn, the mayor of New York City, and their competitor in the field of science. This shows the struggles that Peter has in balancing his work life with the other things going on and serves as a launchpad for the excellent finale of the game. The third plot strand is the romance, or lack thereof, between Mary Jane and Peter Parker. This shows the challenges as a superhero that Peter must overcome to maintain the personal relationships in his life. The Mary Jane subplot also helps push the plot forward as she works as a reporter and is investigating criminal activity in the city and helps Spider-Man uncover the identity of one of the villains in the game. You even get to play as her in one of the levels. Speaking of villains, we got him! This game is like Spider-Man's greatest hits. There are almost a dozen bosses in the campaign of this game, not including the DLCs. And I really have to give a hand to Insomniac Games for the great writing in the game. and not just for Spider-Man and the villains, but for all of the supporting characters as well. All the characters in this game act and look like their classic comic book counterparts, with some minor changes. So if you are a big fan of these characters, playing this game is definitely a must. I rate this game as excellent. Even if you are not a Spider-Man fan, this is a great game. The characters are well written, the story is engaging, combat is so much fun, and even just moving around the map is awesome. They really did capture the spirit of the comic books here and bring it forth in all of its glory. And while not everything is absolutely perfect or exactly what you would expect, this is as close to perfection as I can see anyone getting. Hey guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you enjoy this game. It's going to be re-released for PlayStation 5, so I figured that it was the perfect game to do as my very first Retroaction review, which is basically me reviewing older video games. I want to give a special thanks to Eleonora Casarato, who provided me with most of the gameplay clips for this review. In the future, I hope to do more Retroaction reviews. If you think that I should, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and let me know that you like this content in the comment section below. I appreciate all of your support, guys. I want to thank you all for getting me to 100 subscribers. Once we hit 250, we will be doing a cash giveaway, so you could be the winner. Get your mama, your papa, and your grandma all to subscribe so we can get there. We will also be doing cash giveaways at 500 subscribers and 1,000 subscribers. Again, thank you all for your support. I appreciate it. If you really want to support the channel, the best thing that you can do is by sharing my videos on social media. I pay for advertising on multiple platforms, but no advertising that I can ever pay for would ever be as good as you, my viewers, recommending my content to your friends. I just want to say, God bless you all, have a good day, and remember, with great power comes great responsibility.